So my pleasure to just quickly talk about the gold sustaining sponsors. You guys are the most important thing to our chamber, is the members and supporters, and aside from our sustaining sponsors who are ultra important, but we like to shout them out, and I kind of like to speed read them so we can get on with a great program. Studio Hill, gold sponsor, Studio Hillier, Princeton University in the house, BlackRock, the Bronx is here, Investors Bank, NRG, Borden Perlman, HBK, Buchanan, Ingersoll and Rooney, Blank Rome, Cure Insurance Arena, VJ Scazzari & Sons, RWK Consulting, Trenton Thunder, and CMA. So thank you for them, and silver and bronze are here. Thank you guys for being here. Just a special announcement to make. So as you know that, you all know that the Chamber's biggest night of the year is our annual Legacy of Leadership Awards dinner. This year will be no different, and we normally recognize 4 outstanding leaders in the community that are nominated by you, by the members, and supported by the committee. So I hope you have that on your calendar. It's November 30th. It's at John Henry, Stone Terrace. It's going to be phenomenal. The networking is incredible. The food is incredible, the whole place. So it's going to be a great night. And my pleasure to announce that this year's honorees, Business Leader of the Year, is Jeffrey Herman of Herman Services. And I know Herman is here somewhere. I met them. I saw them. Community Leader of the Year, no surprise, Reggie Coleman of the Boys and Girls Club, does incredible work. Innovator of the Year, Grounds for Sculpture. Karen, I know you're here somewhere. There's Karen. If anybody's an innovator, it's Grounds for Sculpture. And Entrepreneur of the Year, Ted Deutsch of Taft Communications. So Taft is here as well. So, and then this year, for the first time ever, there's a special award, and to recognize her long career promoting health in our community, we're giving a Lifetime Achievement Award to Diane Grillo of RWJ University Hospital. Diane is here, and that is so well deserved. So tickets are on sale at the website. See you there. It's going to be a blast. It's going to be just a great, great dinner. It always is. So we'll see you there. Now for our speaker, Landon Jones. Lanny, he's an author and a magazine editor. His most recent book is Celebrity Nation: How America Evolved into a Culture of Fans and Followers. It was published this year by Beacon Press. His previous books are William Clark and the Shaping of the West, The Essential Lewis and Clark, and Great Expectations, America and the Baby Boom Generation. Lanny is credited with coining the phrase baby boomer, so he gave me that name, and thank you very much. It stuck. I don't know how you coin a phrase, but that's good. That's good. 1989 to 1997, he was the head editor at People magazine, at Time Inc., and most successful magazine in publishing history. While at People, Jones directed the editorial planning and launching of 3 new magazines: Who Weekly, the Australian version of People, In Style, the successful celebrity lifestyle monthly, and People en Español, the first general interest magazine published for the U.S. Hispanic market. His many magazine articles have included cover stories for Time, the Atlantic Monthly, and in 1967, he was a member of a Special Life magazine investigation on the assassination of John F. Kennedy. Incredible stuff. And for that, he received the Sigma Delta Chi Award for Public Service. His 2016 cover story in the New York Times, Sunday Travel, about Vladimir Nabokov in the American West, won the New York Press Club Award and the Best Travel Article of the Year. You get the mic after me, you can correct me, but then I get it again after you, so be careful, be careful. So my pleasure to welcome Lanny Jones.
Okay, so, wow. Thank you very much, Al. I'm very honored to be here. I admire so much what you do, and just walking around, talking to people, seeing your displays, it's amazing. I last talked here in 1992 when I said I expected to give the most lowbrow talk I ever heard here. I think I succeeded. That talk was about the baby boomers in People magazine. Now today is something different. I want to talk to you about the opportunities and the perils that celebrity culture is presenting to us. And you in the audience are the right people to know about it. And no, this is just not about Kim Kardashian. This is firstly about the process that gives us celebrities, the manufacture and distribution of celebrity culture, and the dilemmas and dangers I see coming from it. And I will add a few things about my own experiences with celebrities when they apply. I mean, like most of you, I used to think that celebrities were something funny, a diversion. It was gossip. It was intriguing, but it was not harmful and not important. But as the title of my book refers to the excessive bandwidth celebrities occupy in our culture. And it's there every day. You see it every day. Have you been watching the U.S. Tennis Open on TV this week? You can just watch the celebrities parade by. Everyone from Katie Couric to Spike Lee, from Anna Wintour to Alec Baldwin. And that's just on TV. Never mind the social media influences. Interestingly, no one really talks about why they're there. I mean, maybe we assume we know why they're there. They're there often to promote their own products and brands, a movie or their own fashion look or whatever. But there are some who do raise money for good causes, and that's hardly ever mentioned. So I read about in today's New York Times, Naomi Osaka, who was there as a former tennis champion, but she's working to raise money for mental health. A good cause. It used to be said that a celebrity without a cause is like a woodpecker without a tree. But you know why they're there, to help the networks get eyeballs, among other things. I mean, consider, for example, who were the most searched for names on Google last year? Were they Zelensky, Biden, Trump? No. They were Johnny Depp, Will Smith, and Amber Heard. Remember that? But that generates more searches than anybody. Now, a long time ago, before the Kardashians, heroes and celebrities were the same people. They were known both for their accomplishments. And there was a difference between them. It was not clear. Heroes were celebrated. The word celebrity was often used as a verb. Celebrity was a contemporary condition, something that happened briefly to people, a flare-up. But fame was lasting. In my first hometown, which was St. Louis, Missouri, there were just 3 heroes for me: Stan Musial, Chuck Berry, and Tina Turner. And all of you probably had a similarly short list of high school heroes. Now, for some reason, and I really looked at this when I worked on my book, I wanted to meet them. And I wanted to have sort of a fake intimacy with them. Now, that compulsion, today we call it celebrity worship. Psychologists call it a parasocial relationship. It's when you feel you have an intimate relationship with someone who doesn't know you. And I wanted to understand it. And the first thing you find out is how little you know. For me, the first was Malcolm X. I met him in 1963 when I was trying out to join my college newspaper. And the editor said, would I please go interview Malcolm X? He was going to be on campus. And I was terrified. I mean, Malcolm X, I knew he was, but he wasn't going to want to meet me. And I thought he was a terrorist, full of anger. And I could imagine he would not be looking forward to meeting this preppy white kid. But I could not have been more wrong. The man I met was kind, patient. He was a professor. He was not angry. He wanted to help me understand things that he understood, and he knew I didn't understand. He sat with me and answered all my questions thoughtfully and uncompromisingly. I emphasized uncompromised, and he did not back off his views. So that's when I decided to become a journalist, literally. I mean, I could get paid for this? This is too much fun. That night, after we talked, he drove into New York to Greenwich Village, sat down with Alex Haley to work on their wonderful book, The Autobiography of Malcolm X. And 2 years later, he was assassinated. Today, we see Malcolm's life through the haze of celebrity culture. Spike Lee's 1992 film, Malcolm X, won an Oscar nomination for Denzel Washington. And this coming season at the Metropolitan Opera will be Anthony Davis's opera, X, The Life and Times of Malcolm X. Now, when we first started People in 1974, celebrity was not even a word we used. We didn't know it. We thought we were going to write about interesting people in the news and put them on the cover. And we tried. Our cover subjects were Martha Mitchell, this is back during Watergate, Henry and Nancy Kissinger, that was an unlikely cover, and the most unlikely, J. Paul Getty. They all bombed on the newsstands, not one made rapists. We seemed ready to impale ourselves on the cross of politics and old age. Then we realized, we put an actor named Telly Savalas on the cover, and he was in a TV show called Kojak TV, and he was also shirtless. And they sold gangbusters. And women wrote in and said, let's see the rest of him. But that taught us about TV exposure, and so Charlie's Angels was on the cover. And the magazines somehow succeeded, and I went on to meet all these celebrities, ranging from Elizabeth Taylor to Princess Diana. These encounters were often embarrassing. We had Princess Diana, come to a dinner in Chicago, and to raise money, basically. And I was going to be sitting next to her at the dinner, but that had to be cleared by the palace. And the palace said, well, you can, and I said, I'd like to have the first dance. And they said, well, to have the first dance, there are 3 conditions. You have to be a good dancer. I said, yes, yes. You have to be married. Yes, yes, yes. I cleared it. You had to be 6 feet tall. Well, we found somebody else to dance with Diana. The other similar one was when I went to interview somebody I really wanted to meet, Elizabeth Taylor. Remember her? These days, a lot of people don't remember her. I went to her house in Bel Air. I had 2 tape recorders, a notebook, and a bouquet of purple orchids to match her famous purple eyes, violet eyes. So I was there waiting for the butler to open the door. The door flew open, and it's Elizabeth Taylor. And I was so startled, I dropped everything on the floor. So her first sight of me was crawling around trying to find my notes and my tape recorder. So people said you should write a book. About what? I didn't quite know. I didn't just want to tell dopey stories about celebrities like those. So we used to go to focus groups to find out what people wanted to read about, our readers. And the moderator before the group, this was in Chicago, this one, would warm up the group by throwing out an easy warm-up question. And the question was, who are your heroes? And they would try to answer. But then I went to one, and the moderator no longer asked that question. And I said afterwards, how come you don't ask the heroes question anymore? And she said, oh, they can't think of any. And that told me something. If people can't identify their own heroes and they're full of celebrities, that was something, that's when my book got started. I thought, this is an issue, and we're still living with it. We're still living with the celebrity industrial complex and how celebrities have crowded heroes out of our minds and out of the public space. And what happened to heroes? And I thought, well, this could be somewhat of a mea culpa. I mean, we had a role to play in doing this. So anyway, that's what the book became, sort of anecdotes, a history of the idea of celebrity, and my conclusions, some of them kind of grim about what's happening now. People have tried to wade into these choppy waters. The Librarian of Congress, Daniel Boorstin, memorably put it in his classic book, The Image, written back in 1961. The celebrity, he said, is a person known for their well-knownness. That wasn't bad. Andy Warhol famously said, in the future, everyone will be famous for 15 minutes. Now that says something about the ubiquity of celebrity and also its transience. Never mind when he was asked later by fact checkers like me, Warhol admitted he never really said that. But the aphorism had a life of its own. My favorite definition I thought of yesterday, or looked up yesterday, celebrity is a cluster of misunderstandings surrounding a name. And the Oxford English Dictionary, the first place I went, defines, gives a almost religious meaning to it. You celebrate. You celebrate a mass if you're a priest. The due observance of rites and ceremonies. In the 17th century, a widow could be said to be celebrating her husband's funeral, but not necessarily joyously. But a celebrant is a person, and a celebrity is who help us bridge the gap between gods and mortals. And there we started to get at something godlike aspect that we attribute to celebrities. We see it when someone famous walks into a restaurant, and then you look around and everyone's forks are sort of freezing in the air. What's that about? So that led me to the deep history of celebrity. So who was the world's first truly famous person? That was Alexander the Great. Why? His was the first mortal face to be placed on a coin. Before him, only the faces of gods were on coins. But when a living human being had his face on a coin, that was special. So he became famous. And could there be a link, I thought, between fame and a new technology that spreads it? And the Greeks, by the way, knew a lot more than we do, because they understood you did not confuse gods and goddesses with mortals. But they thought that gods were celebrities, but not mortals. That's changing. The archetype pull to make a celebrity into a god is more powerful than our capacity now to understand it and to control it. We don't really have our arms around it. And this is, I'm going to get to this, especially with social media, where the technology is sort of outpacing our ability to understand it. In the Greek mythology, in Odysseus' most celebrated adventure, on his voyage home to Ithaca, he fights the giant Cyclops and Odysseus tells the giant his name is Nobody. And then after Odysseus gouges out the Cyclops' eye, the giant yells, "Nobody is killing me." And there's an echo of that in Emily Dickinson's famous poem that begins, "I'm nobody, who are you? Are you nobody too?" You know that poem? Well, as I said, celebrity is a product of evolving technologies, and the technologies kept evolving. So then we had movable type, books, and printed images. And suddenly people who did not expect to be famous became famous. These were writers. The author, Jean-Jacques Rousseau, used to play chess every day in the Tuileries in Paris. But then he found himself besieged by people. That had never happened before because his books were available and people were reading them, and they knew about him. And he was the first one, well before Greta Garbo, to publicly denounce the loss of privacy and control in his private life resulting from fame. And one of the first uses of the word celebrity in a secular sense was by Dr. Samuel Johnson, who complained, "I did not find myself enriched in proportion to my celebrity." They also said, Johnson did, when a man has made celebrity necessary to his happiness, he put it in his power of the weakest and most timorous malignity, if not to take away his satisfaction, to withhold it. And people like Franz Liszt became the most famous person in Europe because of his touring. And writers became famous because of their touring and their books and eventually their posters, Charles Dickens and Mark Twain. A Princeton historian, David Bell, has a recent book, has argued that the Enlightenment and the military adventurism and publications and the media revolutions of the time brought people closer or gave them a false sense of intimacy with George Washington. You know, I chopped down the cherry tree. These all came out of books. Napoleon, Toussaint Louverture, Simon Bolivar. And Bell observes that the media revolutions, engraving technologies that for the first time could reproduce a recognizable face, amounted to creating celebrities just as that word was coming into use. Now, the second technology after print and the book and the newspaper was the reproduced image. We saw it used, triumphantly but almost malignantly by people like P.T. Barnum with his posters and paperbacks, and an actress like Sarah Bernhardt, who cultivated her image as an outspoken rebel and was once photographed in a casket. And indeed, you can make the case that celebrity in America now fulfills the need supplied by religion and royalty in other societies. Celebrity worship can be thought of as a kind of religion. An internet search today for Madonna yields the most hits, not for the Virgin Mary, but for Madonna Louise Siccione, the best-selling female recording artist before Taylor Swift. And William Cody, better known as Buffalo Bill, was the first to leverage photography's ability to mass produce his image, making him one of the most recognizable celebrities in the world, maybe number one outside of the British royalty. People campaigned to have Buffalo Bill run for Senate. Why is this familiar? Some things haven't changed. A little-known woman named Martha Jane Canary became Calamity Jane by creating her own pulp fictions and posters and challenging the assumptions of gender normality and becoming a role model for today's defiant female celebrities. Now, so after that, newsreels came transatlantic cables, came radio and films, and the media frenzies just got bigger and bigger with people like Charles Lindbergh and our own Albert Einstein throughout the golden age of Hollywood with people like Elizabeth Taylor, who was the first, by the way, to monetize her name through the use of her marketing in a product line. She had perfumes. And one was called, I believe, Passion. Remember that? Maybe you saw it at your grandmother's. Yeah. And then the mass market hits. All in the Family and Charlie's Angels created celebrities and People magazine covers. Now, very recently, the one aspect of celebrity culture everyone agrees to hate is reality television. But there've now been something like 150 reality television shows. Each one of them creates people who are well known, but no one knows why. It's on display. You may have forgotten that reality television, filming the lives of real people, began where? On PBS in the 1970s with the Loud family of Santa Barbara, who paved the way with a TV show called American Family. Why did reality TV start? Because the actors were on strike, just like they are now. And you wonder what the downstream effects from today's strike will be. I shudder it was more reality TV. They're no longer, I'll come back to this. Historically, access to celebrity has been a weapon used against both women and minorities. I go into some detail about this in my book. But one year I went to the Oscar ceremony in LA, and I was up in the audience in sort of the peanut gallery, and I looked down and there was these people standing, very well dressed, standing in the aisles, all white, and just standing there doing the ceremony. And I said, well, who are they? Why aren't they sitting down? And they said, well, they're the seat fillers. What's a seat filler? You probably know. If an Oscar winner were to get up and get an award or go to the bathroom, the seat filler would run in and sit in the seat. So when the TV cameras panned over the crowd, the seats were all pleasantly filled. Well, who were they? They turned out to be the friends and family of well-connected members of the Academy of Motion Pictures, Arts, and Sciences. They were not celebrities, they just looked like them. They were all white. Even when Hollywood had an opportunity to fake diversity, it chose not to. Well, that got to me. So we did a cover story the next year about racism in the Academy Awards. It was called, this was in 1996, and it was called Hollywood Blackout. And guess what? It bombed at the newsstands. And there's no different in this century for pop singer Janet Jackson. When she joined Justin Timberlake for the halftime show of the 2004 Super Bowl in Houston to perform a song, this is a trivia question, Rock Your Body, Timberlake inadvertently or deliberately exposed her breast and thereby generated Nipplegate and the most searched for person in terms of 2004 and 2005. Then a guy named Jared Karim credited this wardrobe malfunction for giving him the impetus to start YouTube. So I had not known that until I did the research for this book. That's where YouTube came from, was from the Nipplegate scandal, because it had so many searches on the internet. Well, then the arrival of the smartphones changed everything. I mean, today anybody can become famous with enough patience and enough Twitter followers. In case you wonder, am I clear, by the way? I keep moving around away from the mic. Kim Kardashian, I looked this up yesterday, has 362 million population followers on Instagram. Now, anyone who acquires fame is at risk. They may suffer from a diagnosis, a very real medical diagnosis of what is called acquired situational narcissism. And no, there's not a pill for that. Acquired situational narcissism is a condition in which those in high positions of power, movie stars, politicians, athletes, develop narcissistic traits as a result of their fame. Celebrity worship self-selects for narcissistic males with a ravenous need for attention. Their life becomes a performance. Now, for example, Donald Trump wrote his own reality TV show and his own defiance to the presidency. But in the absence of conventional qualifications, he is required to work endlessly to remind people he's a totally big celebrity, as if the fame is the measure of his merit. Now, by doing that, and by flouting the normal accepted standards of behavior, Trump is in the tradition of the defiant celebrity. Defiance is important here. You see it with Calamity Jane, Oscar Wilde, Sarah Bernhardt. But the difference now is that the newest defiant celebrities own their visibility to publicity alone, not ability or talent or even faked ability. And recent examples of celebrities who use their status to enter politics very recently were Dr. Oz, athlete Herschel Walker, both of whom I believe lost in the last election cycle. And of course, before them, Ronald Reagan, Al Franken, Clint Eastwood, and Sonny Bono. I expect them to show up again in 2024. One of my thought experiments I keep thinking about is, what if there were no celebrities? What would change? And one thing that would change is the bestseller list. Because half of the nonfiction bestsellers these days are written by celebrities or their ghostwriters. And every celebrity memoir is an attempt to create and package and sell a personal myth, a narrative constructed to highlight their resilience, their redemption, and their path forward. Basically, the celebrity memoir says, okay, I was once famous and not famous, and I was a jerk, but I learned my lesson, and now look how good I am. Now, over the years, the escape route from acquired situational narcissism, many stars have used as drugs. The list of celebrity deaths from suicide and drugs is long and continually updated. You maybe would not be surprised to know that the life expectancy of celebrities has been studied, and it's 13 years shorter than that of people who do not have to cope with the slings and arrows of fame. Even worse and more disturbing, female celebrities fare poorly, dying 21 years earlier than the average American woman. Now, I had my role in this. I had a hand in one embarrassing incident during my time at People. Late one night, I was closing a story, and this is like 2 a.m., 3 a.m., about an actor named Abe Vigoda, well known from a TV show called Barney Miller, and from the movie The Godfather, which he played a dour mobster named Tessio. So when I saw Vigoda's name in his print in the story, and remembering his sort of gloomy presence from The Godfather, I thought to myself, well, he's dead now. So I wrote into the story, the late, those stupid fact checkers, the late Abe Vigoda. Well, in fact, he was still alive. The rumors of his death were greatly exaggerated. He called a press conference to prove it and posed in a coffin holding a copy of People magazine. He then lived another 34 years, I think to spite me. When he did die finally, it made the New York Times front page below the fold, and the People era was mentioned in the lead. And I often wonder, by the way, if I thought he was dead because his time of greatest celebrity had already passed. In other words, the incident was how easy it is, an example, to conclude that if someone is no longer in the media circus, they must have died. Now, we continue to investigate what the prominence of celebrity means to people, and I worry about children. A study done of the historical change of different values communicated by the television programs in general, aimed at 9 to 11-year-old children, found that the number one value communicated was not to be heroic, to be good, to help my neighbors. It was to be famous. And virtually every study since then has shown a similar rise in the value individuals and children assigned to fame, and a decline in the value of community activities like these. And so in some ways, your enemy is the television shows that are promulgating the idea that all that matters is being famous. A British psychologist named Lynn McCutcheon says that 1/3 of Americans suffer from celebrity worship syndrome, and most of us are at risk from developing the condition. I love she said at risk, like it's a disease. And by the way, the research shows younger people, as you know from reading the paper, and in fact in today's paper, increased loneliness and decreased community involvement. I mean, what you were doing here in community involvement is fighting, a really worrisome trend that's going on. The disturbing one, they've studied the characteristics of people most interested in celebrity, and they have found that they are least engaged in politics, least likely to be a social activist, and least likely to vote. So there's a relationship, a proven relationship, between celebrity worshipers and non-voters. So I like to call it a weapon of mass distraction. Stepped into the space vacated by civic engagement. If you wonder why people are bowling alone, and that's the title of a very good book some of you may have read by Robert Putnam called Bowling Alone, and why Americans are so divided and disarrayed, all you have to do is turn on the television, check out the smartphone, and watch the celebrities parade by. So it's as if we're not trying to keep up with the Joneses anymore. We're trying to dance with the stars. I go on to say, I don't want to talk too long here. How am I doing? Okay. This prospect of confession and redemption for stars who've broken the law even proves their fixed and unassailable status in American society. We can get rid of our elected officials and presidents more easily than we can dislodge a celebrity from the public consciousness. Well, perhaps they're unassailable because so many organizations and marketers and media have a stake in them. Certain celebrities, not banks, are too big to fail. And they certainly encourage consumption at every level. Let's see here. So public visibility becomes a part of the story. Where do we go from here? Well, is it like do we stare into the water like Narcissus? Or do we watch? There's a computer bot out there you can look at on, I believe it's on Instagram, called Lil Michaela, who's a robotic bot-created artificial person. Look at Michaela, who now has 2.8 followers on Instagram, and I'm not sure if people realize she's a fake. Look it up sometime. Well, maybe now we can look beyond the economics of scale and put our definition into a larger worldview that embraces someone like Vladimir Zelensky, who went from a fictional world, he was on a sitcom on television, into a real world where he has the proven heroics. Then we can bend towards what a radio host, I conclude my books with these words, called true honor, that does not flow from power, money, or fame. It's what we contribute regardless of being recognized, respected, or celebrated. It's what we give to those whom we care about, and also to community and country, those in need and those worthy, the living and the dead. And true honor is and always will be in strength of character and the hard-minded and heartfelt deeds that come from it. That's a gift we can truly celebrate. Thank you. Okay. Q&A?
Yeah.
Tell them I can't hear.
I won't tell
I'm
them.
happy to
You
take
could tell them that.
questions, and Hal has volunteered to translate because I'm hard of hearing. So,
Anybody? Any questions? Any celebrity questions?
Lanny, that was very rich in context, and I'm thinking more about how isn't, and you touched on this, that isn't the rise of celebrity devotion concomitant with the demise of religion as part of the human condition, that we seek,
Well-
we seek to adore and devote ourselves to something,
yeah,
but isn't
could hear
it the
that?
low-hanging fruit?
I agree. That's well said. Yeah, they seem to be semi-replaceable.
Yeah.
And that when you look at, the demise of religion and the rise of celebrity, there's a seesaw, going on here. And it's a trade-off. And that's what I meant when I talked about the origins of the word celebrity and celebrate in the Oxford English Dictionary. It comes from a religious context. It's devotional.
Right.
Basically, you think of it as devotion. So devotion has been transferred to some degree from religion to celebrities at a sort of an unconscious,
Right.
subterranean level. I agree.
Anybody else? Any questions?
Lonnie, if you look at a celebrity that goes out of the way to give back to the community, would you say they're doing that as yet another level of narcissism, or would you say they're actually trying to show people that they have a human side and they're not just a celebrity, but they are a human just like everybody else with a heart and gifts?
Yeah, I think I heard that. Celebrities who are giving back, are they being narcissistic too? Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying, are they being narcissistic to be recognized, or are they giving back to show I have a human side?
It's hard to get into their motives. And this morning's New York Times, when I read about Naomi Osaka, I get and raising money, using the open to do it, and a Times interview, but she was sincere in her. She dropped out of tennis because of what she called her mental health problems. And so I give her a lot of credit for that. And you do see, but what I really don't like is that the media, there's not that much in it for them other than to feel good, because the media doesn't cover it. Roger Federer, who I've admired, I'm sorry, I'm into tennis today, who I've admired for years, gives a lot of money to help underprivileged kids in South Africa. And do you guys all know that? I did not know this. And that was news and interesting to me, but it's undercovered. No one talks about it. Why? What brand is profiting? That's a problem, I think.
He has a big foundation, Roger Federer. Roger Federer has a big foundation. You go to his website. It tells you all about that
Oh, really?
foundation and all of the good work it does, because that's my idol. I follow that.
Oh, that's wonderful. I will look it up. Thanks for the tip.
Could I ask one question?
Surely.
Do you think that Americans want for their political leaders celebrities rather than statespersons?
I'm worried. I'm worried. More and more often, I think that seems to be the case. I mean, sort of wisdom and statesmanship and heroics seem to be overlooked in terms of whatever, ratings or something. I don't feel good about it.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Good? All right.
Way back there.
So, do you think, I guess this is like a big question we really can't know the answer to for, because it's the future, it could be anything, but do you think that there is some kind of hope? What do you think that we can do in our
Hope?
daily
I
lives?
can't hear that.
Is there some kind of hope
What can we do in our
that
daily
would change?
Is there some kind of hope that will change?
What can we do
I think,
to contribute to a positive change?
Right, what can we do as a community or?
I think what you're doing right here, I think the hope is in this room. Right?
Good answer. Good answer. All right. Thank you.
Okay. Melvin. Thank you.
I'll take that one. Let me have that. Thank you. Well done. Laney, thank you so much. That was interesting. I have a real quick celebrity story to tell you. So my son, as most of you know, was an actor, and we flew out about 10 years ago to LA, and so we're trying to act like celebrities, and we went to the Chateau Marmont, and we're having champagne and sitting around having lunch. 10 years ago, I'm still paying the credit card bill, acting like but there was a gentleman sitting alone next to us, and he heard us talking. The family was there, and he leaned over and said, "Are you from New Jersey?" I said, "Yeah, we are from New Jersey." He said, "Oh." He said, "Can I join you?" And he was alone, so he said, "Yeah, come on." And he said, "I love your taste in wine," and we're having some wine. And he turned out to be one of the original producers of a show called Jersey Shore. And it had just started. It was in the first year. And he said to us, "I cannot believe that we made celebrities and millionaires out of a couple of drunk kids." And that was, and now I got to deal with them the rest of my life, is what he said to us. So, you never know what goes on. So thank you so much for that. That was incredible. Always good to stay on top of those kinds of things. Thank you, lunch sponsor, video sponsor, Your Town Tube. Over 29,000 videos and 2 new TV shows, Mercer Local Influencers, Mercer Buy Local Connection. Our sponsors get to put videos on there free, 1 to 3 minute videos. Make sure you're doing that. It can be about anything. You can change them every week. And if you're not a sponsor, it's a very low price to do that, but really good stuff.
Your Town Tube is today's #1 all-local promotion, social media and networking in the Princeton-Mercer region. The most effective, attractive, quickest, and affordable ways to reach a huge local audience.